So it was beautiful. So we really appreciate it. All right, are we ready for Virgo? Virgo and the sixth house. We put ourselves into, as we can see, we're back to the passive mutable earth. So we're yin energy again. So it's energy coming inward, coming back to the center. And so one of the most simple little explanations that EA will give for transitioning from Leo to Virgo is Virgo itself is a transitional archetype. And the first 5 signs houses are really about self. And then Virgo starts transitioning us to others. And the same thing happens with Libra through Aquarius being so much of others. And then Pisces becomes that transitional archetype back to self. But when you look at, the happy little illustration that Jeffrey would give is Leo, we're on top of the pyramid. Then when we move into Virgo, we flip it over and we become the bottom of the pyramid. So we wanted to spend some time tonight because we are more or less at the ending of the Piscean age, getting ready to make a transition into the Aquarian age. Specific dates vary all the time. To me, I have this Sagittarian outlook. So who cares what the date is? Specifically in eons of time, it's more the archetype and the transitions of what's happening. And so there's usually at least several hundred years, 300 to 500 years of transitioning from one archetype to the next. And when we get to the ending of one of these great ages that we talked about last night from the astronomical point of view, when you get to the ending of one of these great ages, you have a culmination of the age. And so that culmination is just like the completion of a cycle. And so anything that's unfinished comes to be closed. Anything about the age that's been, in our case, distorted comes up to the surface to be clarified. As we're looking at the ending of this Piscean age, and again, remember we were talking about that vernal equinox goes backwards through the zodiac slowly, making, 25,680 year cycle, I think it was. And so what we're doing is more or less getting from the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 degrees Pisces to 30, 29, 28, 29 Aquarius. So that's the effect that we're going. But here we are at the ending of this Piscean age. And so we're culminating all of this. And when these ages change, that's when it shakes things up. And from a broad collective point of view, we have the opportunity to break the chain, so to speak, to break the history, to break the old patterns. And so this is a lot of what we're seeing coming up. And even on a broad collective level, it can create unrest. If you go back to the beginning of the Piscean age, as we were closing out the Aryan age and beginning the Piscean age, what was happening? We were having religion start on the planet. We were having that formalization of Judaism. And they were looking for that Messiah to come. And of course, everybody was the Messiah. And you can see all the turmoil and the stuff that happened then. And so here we are, one great age later, one whole cycle later, working with all of this. So one of the things that you can look at to understand just some of humanity right now. I'm wandering with this Virgo archetype, but I think it's a time to do it. I think I told you this earlier, but I'll repeat it again. Those who are here with the Pluto in Leo generation came in laying the seed thoughts for the Aquarian age. Those who are here with the Pluto in Virgo generation have come in at the end of this Piscean age to work with the healing and the resolution. And so this to me is one of the most natural expressions of the Virgo archetype, is the ability to heal, the the ability to self-heal, the ability to self-love. And so as we look at this whole archetype of Virgo, in today's perspective, we have so many distortions from it. You know, people just don't even recognize these distortions anymore. Remember from yesterday, we talked about how we have these human-made conditionings that teach us God is male, God is outside of us judging us, and God is perfect. Flies in the face of natural spiritual laws and principles, which teach us the universal source is beyond gender, beyond God, goddess. It's both genders. It is found within, reflected outward, and it is an evolving force. So this all relates to that Pisces-Virgo archetype. And so Pisces being the last sign of the zodiac, representing the whole circle and everything that came before it, in and of itself represents this completion. The potential for perfection can be there in Pisces because of the wholeness. Virgo and the 6th house is the opposite of that. It is the lack of perfection and the intense awareness of this lack of protection. And so these human-made conditionings that have come along have focused on this Virgo-Pisces archetype. Again, we talked about this yesterday in the philosophical parts of this, that there's this perfect male God out there, and we as humans are therefore imperfect. So the guilt that has been installed from this, and the guilt linked to atonement, masochism, the guilt linked to anger, sadism. This is all that Virgo-Pisces axis. Okay, so you can see where Virgo gets the perfectionism. It's also, this is the 2nd sign, house of the zodiac, that is ruled by Mercury. And here Mercury goes, in Gemini, Mercury was air, and in Virgo, Mercury becomes another earth archetype. Mutable archetype. Both of the placements of Mercury's rulership are mutable. But so what we start to have with this Virgo archetype, naturally, is that ability to analyze, to figure things out. We're taking it from Gemini now, and we're going to go to Virgo. And so Mercury steps it up a bit. It has an ability to process things, to figure things out. Due to the human conditioning upon the planet, what we have a tendency to do is to want to always compare it to some perfect standard. And therefore notice what's not perfect. I'm not pretty enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not handsome enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. The cup half empty syndrome. So I'm just going to wander through the archetypes as I know them, okay? All right with everybody? One of the things that we can then also see from this, with this Virgo and 6th house situation, and the ability to be awareness of the lack of perfection, is how this will also relate on a deep spiritual level, is that we can be aware of where we have not yet perfected to become God, goddess-like. And if we quiet down enough to get in touch with this, it is a void. Is it a big emptiness? It's a big yearning. And due to the distortions of the human-made conditionings, we feel that, we can't, again, remember I said we've been conditioned to believe that the spiritual path is the path of the monastery and the convent, and really it's the path of the householder, meaning living life, all right, bringing it into your life on a 24/7 basis. Well, what will happen with Virgo as it becomes aware of this lack of being godlike, or this lack of perfection, is it becomes overwhelming. And so, therefore, we want to fill up that void. We have a tendency to fill up that void, fill up that space with everything else but source. We fill it up with all kinds of stuff. It doesn't, anything and everything that you can imagine of. Anything that creates a procrastination principle. Anything that creates an avoidance principle. So, you know, the typical Virgo thing, you know, I don't have it perfect enough yet. The example of Greg last night showing us this wonderful graphics he's created, we all think is perfect. And what, you know, what's the comment before he shows it to, it's not done yet, it's not perfect yet. You know?
But it's not.
we all have that. So, you know, one of the big lessons for Virgo is recognizing that perfection is a process. And whenever you get there on one level, you see another level yet to go. You get there, and then you see another level that you get to go through. And so the, you know, Virgo will sit there and look from this point of lack at this big, you know, goal, ideal, and it's the big old mountain that's too much. And so this is where that little story of the centipede comes in. You need to take that big goal and you need to just break it down, and it's one step, 1 foot in front of the other. And that's always a nice little process for Virgo on a practical level. It's just being able, when you're looking out there at something that you perceive to be the next step, the next lesson, the next goal, and it puts you into overwhelmment or into paralyzation, one of your ways out of it is to just say, okay, what's the first step? What's the next step that I can take without, you know, worrying about how I'm going to get to that end of the road? And that's how you get yourself out of the perilous. Mutable, adapting.